Incredible revelation, single dad's touching gesture transforms CEO's paralyzed daughter's life. Jamie wiped the grease from his hands and adjusted his well-worn overalls, surveying the familiar sights of Maplewood. The comforting scent of fresh-cut grass mingled with the ever-present whiffs of tire smoke from his auto shop. But as he bent down to check on the oil levels of an ancient sedan, a nagging thought interrupted his routine. His daughter, Lily, was bound to a wheelchair. An accident had robbed her of mobility, and now the world felt impossibly larger, more distant. The tight-knit community often celebrated those who worked hard, like him, but rumors had begun swirling about Valerie, the CEO of the local tech firm, a woman who, like him, knew the struggles of raising a daughter with disabilities. The juxtaposition struck him hard. Their lives were parallel yet worlds apart. Every night, after closing up shop, he would watch Lily squeeze every bit of joy from her watercolor paints, using makeshift brushes he crafted from household items. It was a humble existence, a delicate dance between providing and nurturing her dreams, and yet Jamie couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't enough. Could he, a single dad from the garage, truly provide what she needed to thrive? That eternal question gnawed at him, especially when whispers about Valerie's wealth floated through the air like the autumn leaves blanketing the ground. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. It was during a late-night repair that he learned about the charity gathering Valerie was organizing. The energy in his chest swelled, a desire to take part in something bigger surged. But why? The fear of feeling inadequate flooded him. Was a simple mechanic like him really equipped to engage with someone of her status? What if she scoffed at his offerings? With every passing day, the anticipation of their meeting grew. Deep within, Jamie questioned if she would see him as just another working-class father, someone who couldn't possibly understand the refined world she inhabited. He imagined the conversations, the polite nods that masked judgment, and felt his heart race at the thought of rejection. How could he close the gap between their very different lives? Then came the day he decided to create a wheelchair-accessible art studio for Lily in the garage, a wrapped promise meant to demonstrate that creativity had no limits. Each brushstroke of paint that adorned the walls was filled with hope, but doubt lingered. What if it all wasn't enough? When Valerie's colleagues laughed off his contributions during a crucial meeting, the seeds of despair took root. Jamie felt the weight of his background crushing him as he struggled with the suffocating thought that he didn't belong in this world. Would his efforts ever spark joy in Lily's eyes? Or was he merely a fool fighting a losing battle against entrenched beliefs? As their public reveal approached, the tightness in his chest grew unbearable. Jamie stood at the brink, ready yet terrified, wrestling with thoughts that screamed, what if he failed? What if everything fell apart? The day had arrived, casting a gray shadow over Jamie's garage. As he prepared for the gathering, the wheels of his mind spun in chaos. He brushed his fingers over the fresh easels and paints, each item a testament to his love for Lily, yet they felt like weights dragging him down. The contrast between their modest art studio and the glitz of Valerie's world threatened to crush him. He arrived at the venue, an expansive hall adorned with elegance that felt suffocatingly foreign. Jamie could feel the judgment in every speculative glance, each observer a reminder of his origins. How had he thought his simple acts could resonate in such a sophisticated space? Despite this, he steeled himself. He was here for Lily. Nothing else mattered. Walking through the gathering, he spotted Valerie, her confidence radiating like a spotlight aimed directly at him. He felt small and unattractive in his grease-stained attire. Why hadn't he tried dressing more appropriately? The nagging feeling of inadequacy edged closer as he approached her. "Jamie, right?" she greeted warmly, extending her hand. The softness in her voice momentarily disarmed him, prompting a spark of hope. Yet, doubt crept back in. Could she truly grasp the depth of his experiences and challenges? What a beautiful initiative you've started for your daughter, Valerie continued, glancing over his shoulder at the displays. I heard about the accessible art studio. It's a unique approach. Her words, intended as encouragement, felt heavy with scrutiny. Thanks, he mumbled, his voice barely rising above the applause echoing around them. I just wanted to give her a place to create. A place where she feels free. The vulnerability in his voice surprised him, a crack in the carefully constructed wall he had built to shield himself from judgment. Valerie's expression softened, and for a brief moment, Jamie saw beyond the CEO facade. Art is an incredible outlet for expression, especially for kids like Lily, she said, a connection forged in the shared experience of raising children facing challenges. But even in this moment of understanding, doubt lingered. Was she really seeing him, or merely a token story to humanize her corporate empire? As the evening unfolded, Jamie found himself increasingly immersed in the environment. Conversations swirled around him, but they felt distant. He struggled to engage without retorting to his insecurities. Yet, a realization began to crystallize. Maybe this gathering weren't solely about exposure and acceptance but a chance to advocate for Lily and, inadvertently, for himself. The moment he truly recognized this pivot was unfurling, he spotted a group gathered around a donation booth. A familiar face, one of the colleagues who had dismissed his contributions, leaned in to ridicule an artistic piece credited to him. It ignited something within Jamie, a fierce flame fueled by indignation and determination. He surged forward, heart racing, ready to confront the sneering skepticism. That's more than just paint and brushes, he declared, finding the strength in his voice. It's about empowering children to express themselves when the world tells them they can't. Lily should not be defined by her wheelchair. The words cascaded from him like a liberated torrent, and the room fell silent. For the first time that night, he felt the weight of doubt lift slightly, replaced by a stirring sense of purpose. He understood that perhaps this was not merely about who he was in comparison to Valerie, but a chance to reshape the narrative for all the kids like Lily. The unexpected rush of affirmation surged through him, an inner transformation catalyzed by defiance. He was no longer just a mechanic in a garage, he was a father ready to fight for the dreams of his child. But just as he started to regain his composure, Valerie stepped forward with an unexpected proposal that left Jamie reeling. I want to collaborate with you on a project that elevates these voices further. His heart thundered as he weighed his next words, contemplating whether he should seize this life-altering opportunity or hold back, fearing an eventual failure. The air was thick with uncertainty, the world he once thought impossible suddenly within reach. What if he stepped into that new arena? What would he uncover about himself? The moment of truth was impending. Jamie stood frozen, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The weight of Valerie's words settled heavily on his shoulders, an unexpected proposition dangling before him like a ripe fruit, the chance to merge their worlds, uniting his passion for art with her corporate prowess. But the thrill of potential was dulled by the specter of doubt lurking in the recesses of his mind. Collaborate? With me? He managed to stammer, skepticism cracking the edge of his voice. I mean, why would you want to partner with someone like me? I'm just a mechanic with a dream. Valerie's gaze held steady, a mixture of confidence and kindness shimmering beneath her polished exterior. Because you understand what it means to advocate for those often overlooked. You've lived it. That experience is invaluable. Her words resonated within him, reigniting the flame he had felt only moments ago. For years, he had poured every ounce of himself into creating that studio for Lily. The recollections of late nights driven by determination flooded back, teaching her art while nurturing her spirit, allowing her to express herself in ways the world had often denied. But was he ready to step beyond the protective shell he had crafted over the years? Valerie continued, we can make a significant impact together. Imagine the reach we could have by harnessing your ideas and connecting them with our resources. You could be the voice for countless kids. The ambition behind her words sparkled like an enticing beacon, and Jamie could feel its pull. But insecurities settled in, dragging him back into the shadows of self-doubt. His past failures echoed in his thoughts, the projects abandoned, the dreams unfulfilled. What if he faltered again? What if he wasn't enough? I need time to think about it, he replied, the finality of his words hanging in the air like a heavy fog. Of course, Valerie said, her expression unwavering. Take your time. But please remember this, in the journey of life, it can be a mistake to allow fear to dictate our choices. Give yourself permission to reach for more. As she walked away, Jamie felt a strange combination of terror and excitement surge through him. His heart raced as he considered the potential that lay ahead. Did he really have it in him to push past his fears and embrace this new opportunity? He stepped back into the main hall, where lively conversations filled the air. Each face he passed had stories of their own dreams, their struggles. While he had been icebound by insecurity, they had flourished in their resolve. There was something exhilarating about that realization he, too, could carve out a new narrative. In that moment, surrounded by the hum of creative energy, Jamie's resolve began to crystallize. There were options, avenues to explore that didn't involve limiting himself to what he had always known. What if he embraced this collaboration, not just for Lily's sake, but for his own growth as well? Yet as he pondered this burgeoning potential, a tenth of an echoing thought gnawed at him. What if he failed? Confronting that nagging fear, Jamie closed his eyes and inhaled deeply. Fear had taken too many years of his life. He needed this chance that he wouldn't just be a mechanic or a father burdened by circumstances. He could become an advocate. Perhaps he could inspire other parents facing similar challenges. Stepping toward the donation booth where he had spoken out earlier, Jamie felt renewed purpose swelling within him. This was more than an opportunity, it was a calling. But just as he began crafting a mental outline of how to approach Valerie again, he caught a glimpse of a familiar silhouette emerging from the crowd, his old colleague, the one who had belittled him earlier. The moment of reckoning edged closer, and with it, Jamie's determination solidified. How would he confront the shadows of his past as he stepped into a future painted with the colors of possibility? What awaited him in that confrontation? With a mix of exhilaration and dread, he prepared to face the specter of his insecurities yet again. The moment had come to confront his past and determine whether he would be the architect of his destiny. Jamie's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the figure approaching him. Scott, an old colleague he had parted ways with years ago, wore a smirk that didn't let Jamie forget their history. The moment spent in the shadow of Scott's condescension rushed back like a tidal wave, washing over remnants of confidence he had just begun to build. Jamie. Didn't expect to see you here, Scott said, voice dripping with mockery. Still playing mechanic, or have you finally moved on to something bigger? Every word seemed laced with the weight of the past, the subtle condescension pushing him back toward the self-doubting space he had fought so hard to escape. But Jamie was no longer that same defeated man who had let Scott's taunts linger. What had once felt like suffocating weight now felt more like fuel. I'm exploring new opportunities, actually, Jamie replied slowly, testing the strength of his new resolve. Some creative avenues. You wouldn't understand. Scott's laughter rang hollow, but Jamie could see it etched with surprise. Creative? I can't imagine what that entails for someone like you. Tempted to lash out, Jamie took a breath instead. At that moment, he could either retreat back to the shadows or challenge Scott head-on, marking a definitive shift in how he viewed himself. What does that even mean, Scott? People like me don't get to have dreams? Jamie questioned, daring the other man to respond. His pulse quickened, the electric tension of confrontation fueling his conviction. I'm not just a mechanic anymore. I believe in something bigger. Scott's expression hardened, the facade slipping momentarily. It was clear he wasn't accustomed to being challenged. That's cute, Jamie. But remember where you come from. Not everyone can reach for the stars. Maybe you've forgotten, Jamie shot back, determination sharpening his voice. You're not the one who gets to define my limits. I'm done letting people like you dictate my worth. The words hung in the air, a declaration of newfound independence that layered Jamie with warmth instead of fear. While old insecurities stirred, a rush of clarity followed like light breaking through clouds. He had allowed others' perceptions to box him in for far too long. Scott's demeanor shifted, the smirk faltering. Interesting. Let us see how far that gets you. With that, Scott turned and walked away, leaving a fading echo of derision behind him. Jamie felt lighter, almost buoyant, buoyed by a rush of possibilities. Confronting Scott hadn't just been about silencing the voice of his old insecurities, it was a cathartic turning point. Jamie understood now that he had control over his own story. The vision of collaborating with Valerie danced in his mind, intertwining with the rush of adrenaline from that confrontation. He envisioned a future where he wasn't just a mechanic. He could shape narratives and offer voices to the unheard. Jamie retreated from the gathering atmosphere, seeking solace in the quieter corners of the venue. Reflecting on the possibilities arising from Valerie's proposition, he envisioned a project where storytelling and advocacy intersected. He could create an outreach program, using art as a tool for expression and healing, a bridge between both worlds, a mechanic's hands guiding thoughtful, transformative action, but a new question lingered like a tickle at the back of his mind. How should he present this idea to Valerie? What if his vision wasn't aligned with hers? What if this opportunity required more than he was ready to give? As curiosity flared and anxiety simmered, Jamie felt the urgency surround him like an embrace. The moment was ripe for engagement, yet vulnerability loomed as a daunting challenge. Would he muster the courage to share his vision? While Jamie's internal compass spun, a new determination ignited within him, stoking his desire to take risks and embrace opportunities. Everything had transformed since that first moment of confrontation, yet he was still standing on the precipice. The time for static fears was over. He knew he could leap into this new chapter. But only if he dared to face the uncertainties ahead. What awaited him in his next encounter with Valerie? Would he be able to fully articulate his vision, or would insecurities strike again just when he needed them to rest? Breathing deeply, Jamie leaned against the cool surface of the wall, trying to collect his thoughts. He replayed the brief encounter with Scott in his mind. Each word exchanged echoed loudly, a reminder that confrontations could carve paths to clarity. But now the stakes were shifting. The confrontation had opened a door he couldn't ignore. Developing his vision into a tangible reality was the next act to face. With a newfound sense of empowerment coursing through him, Jamie turned his focus back to Valerie's pitch. This potential partnership was something more than just a series of tasks and ideas. It represented a significant crossroads in both his personal and professional journey. He reminded himself that he had come this far, battling his doubts to even step beyond the shadows of his past. The thrill of possibility was palpable, but so was the fear of failure. Outside of the quiet corners, voices buzzed and laughter mingled in the air, an encroaching reminder that there was a world far removed from the solitary intrigue of his thoughts. Gathering courage, he decided to locate Valerie. She was someone who inspired him, prompting thoughts he'd never dared to voice before. Yet, would he be able to meet her expectations? What if they weren't aligned? Jamie squared his shoulders and set off to find her. Each step felt deliberate, with echoes of his previous fears trailing behind him like ghosts. The crowd felt alive, contrasting his inner monologue, yet every face reminded him of Scott. Thoughts of past ridicule encouraged a new mantra. This was his moment to redefine himself beyond what others had seen him as. As he approached Valerie's workspace, Jamie could see her engaged in conversation with another colleague, her hands animatedly expressing excitement for their project ideas. The way she carried herself inspired Jamie, and for a moment, he hesitated. Could he articulate the swirling ideas in his head clearly enough? Would he sound foolish, or self-indulgent? But that spark ignited again, the reminder that he had something worth sharing. In his own way, he had transformed. Jamie stepped closer, allowing remnants of hesitation to scatter like fallen leaves in the wind. "Hey, Valerie," he interrupted gently. Both she and the other woman turned toward him, their expressions shifting from conversation to intrigue. "Jamie." Valerie lit up, her smile illuminating the room. "What's on your mind?" His breath hitched. Now was the time to stand confidently in his truth. "I wanted to share some ideas I've been toying with. Ideas about storytelling and outreach." Using art as a conduit for change and expression, bridging my experiences as a mechanic with transformative narratives. Valerie's eyebrows raised in interest, and Jamie's heart raced. Maybe she would see his vision, the way it coiled together the disparate parts of his life, the mechanical, the artistic, the personal. Wow, that's actually intriguing, Valerie responded, leaning closer. I'd love to hear more about this. How do you envision it working? Elation surged through him as he launched into his vision. He spoke of workshops that utilized storytelling to empower individuals whose voices often went unheard, of creating an art gallery where personal journeys became the art itself. With each word, Jamie felt more grounded. They were not just ideas but extensions of his passion, his purpose, yet, a lingering shadow still whispered in his mind. What if she expressed doubt? What if every suggestion came back to the limitations Scott had once articulated? Valerie listened intently, nodding thoughtfully, her enthusiasm seemingly unwavering. As he spoke, Jamie could see the flicker of ideas igniting in her. The more they discussed it, the stronger Jamie's resolve became. He was capable of more than just imagining change, he could be an instigator. As they wrapped up the conversation, Valerie's expression turned serious. Jamie, I think we should explore this further. These ideas deserve a platform, maybe even a presentation, she said, her tone grave with authenticity. But what will the next step be? Staring into the possibilities that danced just outside of reach, Jamie realized to his chagrin that this would not be easy. He could feel walls of anxiety creep in again. Would he have the chops to transform this vision into reality? Did he have the ability to fend off self-doubt while staying open to feedback? This question mingled with his hope and ambition as Jamie tried to process the implications of Valerie's suggestion. Could he assemble his ideas into a cohesive presentation? How could he navigate the fallout from his fears? With a steadying inhale, Jamie seized onto the resolve that had ignited earlier. Perhaps he was ready for this change, even if the path before him was paved with unknowns. Yet, as he wrestled with the emotions, an urgent realization hit him. A decision waited to be made. What was he truly willing to sacrifice to make his voice heard and his vision realized? The time for mere contemplation was fading as the call to action loomed ahead in stark clarity. Would he turn inward and retreat into uncertainty, or would he dare take the leap? Jamie stood in front of Valerie, adrenaline coursing through him, intertwining with uncertainty. As her eagerness enveloped him, he felt a brief flicker of confidence. Her belief could be the fuel he needed. But the weight of his task loomed larger than ever. How could he transform passionate ideas into a polished presentation, a concrete embodiment of his vision? The next few days followed a relentless cycle of anticipation and dread. Jamie dedicated every spare moment to crafting the presentation. Juggling work as a mechanic and pouring his heart into a project was a balancing act that had his mind racing. He would sketch concepts on scraps of paper during lunch breaks, seeking beauty in mundane moments, transforming the mechanics of life into art. The thrill of creating something meaningful propelled him forward, but self-doubt lingered like a shadow at his heels. One early morning, after a particularly restless night, Jamie caught sight of his reflection in the bathroom mirror. Fatigue heavily draped across his features made him question the viability of his endeavor. Who was he to claim a voice in art and storytelling? The doubt clawed at him, pulling him away from the resolve he had so recently embraced, but a deeper part of him resisted. Jamie remembered how words had the power to change perceptions, to convey hardship and joy in tandem. Insights from his past twisted and turned in his mind, challenging him to grow. Recollecting his conversation with Scott, he felt the anger swell. Instead of retreating in fear, he wanted to challenge the narrative of who he was expected to be. This project represented more than a presentation. It was a statement of self-worth. With renewed determination, Jamie allocated time to gather feedback. Drawing courage from Valerie's earlier enthusiasm, he decided to invite a few trusted friends to preview his ideas. Each meeting evolved into a necessary crucible. Some offered constructive criticism, others shared wild enthusiasm that ignited Jamie's passion further. Each round of feedback paved a path toward clarity. Magic danced through rough sketches and bullet points as he refined his vision. With every edit, Jamie felt he was chiseling away at the obstructions of his self-doubt. As the outline of his presentation solidified, a sense of empowerment settled in. Ideas transformed into tangible concepts, personal stories coalesced into poignant narratives. However, apprehension still seeped into his mind. What if the audience rejected his vision? Or worse, what if they saw through him, exposing the insecurities he had fought so hard to hide? Before contacting Valerie about an official meeting, Jamie spent hours rehearsing, refining, and practicing articulations for clarity. The mirror became his ally, his critic, as he honed his message to echo with authenticity. On the day of the presentation, Jamie felt the weight of the moment build within him. Each minute felt like an eternity as he stood at the threshold of opportunity. Would he be able to capture the very essence of what mattered to him and communicate it with conviction? As he walked into the conference room, Valerie already seated and attentively waiting for him, Jamie felt a blend of excitement and fear swirl together. Could this be the turning point he had been striving for? "Jamie, I'm ready when you are," Valerie's calm demeanor offered a semblance of encouragement, but underneath it, Jamie could feel the mounting anxiety spiraling within him. With a shaky breath, he said, "Okay, let us do this." The moment had arrived. The time for hesitation dissipated into the air, replaced by the gravity of his dreams resting squarely on his shoulders. The moment of truth loomed large, and a whisper ignited in his mind, reminding him that this was more than presentation. This was about finding his voice and standing firmly in the light of it. As he began to share his vision, Jamie's resolve collided with the realities he feared. Every pulse of his heart echoed the stakes of vulnerability stripped from him. Would he soar, or crumble under pressure? With his conviction rising, he asked himself, for the first time, what would it truly mean to be seen, truly seen, and would he sacrifice everything to stand without fear? And in that moment, a new realization struck him: the real challenge lay ahead. Would they embrace his vision, or would it be another reminder of the past he desperately sought to escape? Time hung heavy in the air as Jamie launched into his presentation. Each word felt as if it carried a weight far beyond mere communication. They were fragments of his soul laid bare for scrutiny. The room, still and expectant, felt like a vast chasm into which he could either leap or tumble. He recalled the supportive faces of his friends, each encouraging nod a lifeline in this swirling sea of uncertainty. The initial moments were a struggle against the poised silence. The practiced lines began to unfold, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Jamie fought to steady himself, inhaling deeply to quell the rising tide of anxiety. He made eye contact with Valerie, anchoring himself to her steadfast presence. Encouraged, he pressed onward, infusing personal anecdotes into his pitch, making it not just a presentation, but a story. His story. As he spoke of dreams interwoven with the fabric of his past, Jamie felt a flicker of clarity illuminating the trembling shadows of doubt. There it was, the message he longed to convey, not just a vision, but a testament to resilience and the power of vulnerability. He felt a yearning to connect, to be understood at a deeper level. Each pause, every glance, pushed him to embrace the authenticity surging within him. Suddenly, he caught a flicker of something in Valerie's eyes, a spark of recognition. Was it comprehension? Agreement? Fueled by that fleeting glimpse, Jamie leaned into his narrative even more, sharing how art had always been his refuge, a sacred space where he felt truly whole amidst external chaos. He painted a vivid picture of his childhood, meticulous in detail, every stroke of his words beckoning his audience into the world he had crafted. Yet, in the back of his mind, an echo of old criticism whispered insidiously, drumming uncertainty against his resolve. Then came the revelation. As he shared the pivotal moments that shaped his artistic vision, a realization settled in a profound corner of his mind: he had transcended the need for validation. It wasn't merely about convincing them, this was about unveiling his truth. For so long, he had weighed his worth precariously against others' judgments. Standing before Valerie, before this audience, felt like reclaiming lost ground. But just as his confidence began to build, anxiety clawed back, demanding attention. What if his narrative fell flat? The specter of failure loomed ominously, casting shadows over his progress. Could he dare to dream of acceptance? Jamie resisted the urge to retract, to shrink under the weight of that fear, reminding himself that nurturing growth required a leap into the unknown. With renewed fervor, he transitioned to his closing remarks. Those final moments coalesced into a heartfelt assertion his true intention was to inspire that connection within others, to reveal their own narratives through his lens. He underscored the transformative power of sharing, the cathartic release of collective vulnerability. Jamie felt lighter, yet aware that while he had emerged brave in this moment, the answer would still rest on their response. Valerie's thoughtful silence hung in the air, her eyes narrowing slightly in contemplation. Did he move her? Or was she still assessing? Anxiety battled his earlier confidence again, making the ground beneath him feel unsteady. "Thank you, Jamie," she finally said, her voice steady. "That was different. I appreciate you opening up." Different. The word echoed painfully in his mind, mixing with remnants of his fears. Her comment carried weight, it could just as easily validate as it could condemn. Would this be enough to bridge the chasm of doubt that lay between his desires and his reality? Jamie's breath quickened again as silence reasserted itself in the room, heavy with expectation. Each heartbeat urged him to initiate discussions, where his worth might transparently unravel for all to see or positively transform the narrative towards acceptance. How would he respond to the impending challenge ahead? Would he dare to ask questions of his own, to confront whatever came next? Armed only with the vulnerability he had just laid bare. As he prepared to meet Valerie's gaze, Jamie sensed that the real journey had scarcely begun, and the most crucial inquiries were still waiting to surface. As silence enveloped the room, Jamie's heart pounded in his chest, an urgent rhythm underscoring the uncertainty of his next move. He could feel the weight of Valerie's gaze, it was an invitation to dig deeper or retreat into the safety of ambiguity. Either choice carried potential repercussions, both for himself and for the audience who had just experienced a fragment of his truth that he swallowed hard, aware that speaking up meant risking vulnerability yet again. The thrill of having exposed his creative journey mingled with an urge to keep the dialogue alive. What could he ask? What would indeed signify growth? Jamie's thoughts darted like fireflies, illuminating possibilities and snuffing out fears in equal measure. "Valerie," he began, careful to articulate his words without succumbing to hesitation. "What did you think of the part where I spoke about my childhood? Did it resonate at all?" His vulnerability cracked the air and laid a pathway to further discussion, a critical moment that could either dissolve into awkwardness or blossom into a constructive exchange. Valerie's expression shifted, her brows slightly furrowing as she processed the question. For a heartbeat, Jamie felt the ground beneath him shift as different emotions coursed through him: hope, anxiety, defiance. Was this an opportunity or a trap? "I think you touched on something significant," Valerie replied slowly. "You opened a window into your past, which can be powerful. But I wonder if you went deep enough. What do those memories mean to you now?" With each word she spoke, Jamie noticed a deeper layer of engagement unfolding, revealing the potential for a meaningful dialogue. He had expected a nod acknowledgement, a general compliment, but there was something more here, an invitation to excavate the very core of his experiences. The prospect both thrilled and terrified him. "Those moments shaped how I perceive not just art but connection," he found himself divulging. "Art, to me, was a way to express the things I could never say out loud. Like a means of breathing when I felt suffocated by expectations." Valerie nodded, her expression now a mix of intrigue and contemplation. "It seems you used art as a tool for self-acceptance. Have you considered how essential that journey might be for others?" Jamie felt electricity surge through him. Here lay the heart of his presentation, encapsulated in her question. The realization dawned that his own journey of self-acceptance could indeed catalyze healing for others. He was not merely an artist. He was a conduit through which others could explore their own narratives. "Yes, I want to inspire others to uncover their stories," he confirmed, feeling the heat of conviction swell within him. "I want to create a space where they can feel safe to dive into their truth, just as I've begun to do." Valerie's smile widened, encouragement wrapped in appreciation. That's a beautiful aspiration, Jamie. But authenticity requires consistent courage, especially when facing those inner demons. Where do you see yourself in that journey? The tension twisted in Jamie's gut, amplifying questions he had often shied away from. What if that journey didn't just involve sharing his art? What if it led him into uncharted territory, confronting fears he had long buried? Could he embrace the discomfort that came with it? He hesitated, grappling with the culmination of doubts and aspirations. I think, he paused, deliberating his revelation. I think it's time to face those demons head-on. The only way forward is through embracing them, right? Valerie's nod seemed to resonate like a bell of affirmation, propelling him to a new level of clarity. Yet, his heart raced with the underlying fear of what that would entail, what personal truths awaited him beyond the horizon of self-acceptance. As they stood in the aftermath of that conversation, Jamie was struck by the realization that his professional ambitions were intertwined with his personal growth, each brushstroke on canvas reflecting a burgeoning self-awareness. However, what lay ahead was still shrouded in uncertainty. The challenge now loomed larger than ever. Would he be willing to excavate the complexities of his profound truths, letting them surface in ways that might challenge not just others, but himself as well? The stakes had never been higher, and Jamie sensed a transformation was imminent, but little did he know, a chance encounter outside those walls would thrust him into a confrontation with his deep-seated fears, pulling at the very foundations he was beginning to build. Would he rise to meet this unexpected challenge, or would he crumble under its weight? Jamie stepped out of the room, his mind still buzzing with the echoes of his conversation with Valerie. The palpable weight of her words and expectations lingered in the air, inviting him to internalize the newfound awareness he had teetered upon. A wave of determination surged within him, but beneath that was a thick strand of trepidation. He shook his head, trying to push the doubts away as he navigated through the bustling hallway. Art had always been his safe harbor. Yet, as he looked ahead, he realized it was transforming into a more turbulent sea of personal revelations. Suddenly, the colorfully chaotic mural on the wall seemed symbolic of his inner turmoil, a blend of creativity and confusion. Outside, the late afternoon sun bathed everything in a honeyed light, yet Jamie felt a chill creeping in as he meandered to a nearby park where he often sought solace. The rhythmic chirping of birds had a strange stillness, resonating with a sense of impending change. He found a secluded bench and took a deep breath, the crisp air filling his lungs, igniting a spark of clarity amidst the haze. What would true authenticity require of him? He thought of Valerie's question and the deeper truths he had skirted throughout his life. Embracing those demons sounded noble, but was he prepared to confront the darkest parts of himself, the old failures, the relationships left in disarray, the vulnerabilities buried under pride? Just then, a distracted man hurried past him, unintentionally bumping against his shoulder. Jamie's thoughts fell momentarily silent as he steadied himself from the unexpected jolt. Sorry. The man called back, barely glancing at him. Jamie noticed that the man was wearing a faded, paint-stained shirt, an artist, perhaps, similarly embroiled in the struggle of self-expression. Striking up a conversation with someone like this could provide a fresh perspective. But Jamie hesitated. He feared the man may not understand. Jamie's mind whirled with the possibilities of engaging with this stranger, yet a deep seed of self-doubt reared up. What if the man scoffed at his aspirations, recognizing the insignificance of his artistic vision? The discomfort settled heavily in his chest, but as he mentally replayed his dialogue with Valerie, Jamie felt a soft push from within. The stirrings of change urged him to act against his inclination to retreat. Hey! He called after the man, his voice louder than he intended. The artist turned, a hint of surprise on his face. Do you paint? Jamie asked, realizing too late how naive the question sounded. But it was genuine, inscribed with curiosity and the desire to dive deeper into conversation. Yeah, or at least I used to, the man said, an edge of nostalgia cloaked his words. Life has been a bit of a detour lately. Jamie, who felt similar echoes in his life, took that as an entry point. Same here. This journey of self-expression, it's challenging. And suddenly, there they were, two men on the brink of revelation, resonating with each other's truths in surprising ways. As they shared stories, Jamie unveiled his fears regarding vulnerability and authenticity, how the weight of those truths lingered at the edges of his creativity. The man nodded understandingly, sharing his own battles with self-doubt and buried passions. The conversation flowed, and with each word, Jamie felt the tendrils of hope unfurl along with a new appreciation for connection over isolation. Not only was he no longer alone in his struggles, but he also discovered a kindred spirit gripping their brush with the same intensity, yearning for courage in their journey. As dusk fell and the conversation waned, Jamie felt a flicker of strength igniting in him. Here was the burgeoning kinship he had long needed, a reminder that seeking to connect authentically was worth the risk, and perhaps even necessary. There might be truth resonating in embracing not just his past, but also the shared experiences of those around him. Yet, as he rose to bid the artist farewell, an unsettling thought flickered in his mind: this initial connection was just the beginning. There was a haunting possibility ahead, woven amongst the threads of hope and dread. Who else might he encounter in this new pursuit of authenticity? What other hidden fears might they unlock together? Stepping back into the rhythm of city life, Jamie felt an electric anticipation surge within him. The stage was now set, and with every heartbeat, he sensed the urgency to confront deeper truths looming just beyond his reach. Would the next encounter offer clarity or plunge him into deeper darkness? Jamie stood in front of the expansive window of his newly established art studio, the rays of the setting sun casting a warm glow around him. It had been several months since that pivotal evening with Valerie, and in the time since, he had transformed not only the empty space around him but also his very existence. The studio was a testament to hard work, collaboration, and, above all, a resounding self-acceptance he had fought so relentlessly to achieve. As he reflected on his journey, Jamie recognized the stark contrast between past and present. The man who once struggled under the weight of judgment was now an advocate for expression, art flowing like a river of authenticity through every corner of his life. With a smile forming on his lips, he reached for his paintbrush, ready to immortalize the latest dreams that danced in his mind. After that day with Valerie, he dove into the ambitious project they had discussed, a community outreach program centered on art therapy, providing platforms for expression to those often overlooked. Jamie had embraced the opportunity that once seemed unfathomable, merging the passions of a mechanic and an artist to create something beautiful and impactful. The purpose was clear: to uplift not only his daughter Lily but countless children like her who use art as an avenue to reclaim their voices. As he dipped his brush into vibrant hues, memories flooded back to moments spent alongside Lily, each stroke on canvas echoing the joy of witnessing her uncover her potential. They had each transformed through that journey. The mechanic, lost in self-doubt, was stepping boldly into the identity of an artist, a father, and an advocate. Jamie's heart swelled with pride, not merely for what he had built but for the way he had learned to embrace his vulnerabilities. The recent validation of his efforts came loudly and proudly at the last community art fair, where their program showcased children's artwork, each piece narrating untold stories of bravery and resilience. Parents, teachers, and community members came together to celebrate these young artists. Jamie watched as Lily's face illuminated with joy as she explained her art to visitors. The glow on her cheeks mirrored Jamie's own optimism. "You did this, Dad," she had said, her eyes shining with admiration. The comment carved through the thick air of uncertainty that had initially invaded his heart that night with Valerie. Recognition in the community soon followed. Jamie was invited to speak at schools and funding events, his passion resonating deeply with families grappling with similar struggles. His narrative changed from that of a mere mechanic to a visionary who demonstrated the immense power of art in inclusive settings. Even Valerie, with her corporate resources, stood firmly behind him, advocating for their joint initiatives, illuminating connections and dismantling barriers in a way Jamie never thought possible. Jamie's thoughts broke as the laughter of children echoed through the open studio door, fleeting moments of happiness reminding him of why all this mattered. The steady flow of creativity continued to flourish around him, fueled by the very same challenges that once left him paralyzed by fear. He chuckled as an array of tiny fingers marked the walls with colorful handprints, art in its purest form. The juxtaposition, the once silent mechanic turned CEO of his narrative, felt surreal yet undeniably right. He had conquered the very doubts that sought to diminish his worth, proving that capacity and identity are shaped not just by societal labels but also by the stories one chooses to craft. "Will you show me how to paint that tree, Dad?" Lily called out, pointing to a vibrant canvas in the corner. "Absolutely. Let us transform it together," he responded, rushing towards her, the weight of years lifting as he embraced the moment, ready to pass on the torch of expression that he had been given. Completing the tree with Lily served as both a celebration of their relationship and a significant individual achievement for Jamie he had established. Something profound, a solid foundation where creativity could bloom that he recognized with striking clarity that true fulfillment arises from embracing oneself fully, strengths, vulnerabilities, and all. Jamie no longer defined himself by others' perceptions, instead, he authored his own story, crafting a vibrant narrative of possibility and hope that inspired every child who walked through his studio doors. With a burst of old excitement, he dipped his brush once more, determined to continue forging that narrative, one small stroke at a time. This was his moment. He would not waste it as he painted alongside Lily. Laughter bubbled from both their lips, igniting echoes of hope through their shared journey, a perfect blending of past, present, and future as Jamie reveled in the glow of connection, growth, and newfound purpose. Now is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, comment your reactions and theories about the ending, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.